My name's John and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
I really wanted the appendix 2, the spiritual experience, but doesn't matter. I'm going to talk about spirituality anyway. But I think that appendix 2 really, for some reason, struck me a lot. I mean, when I first come, I couldn't read. I was just too shaken. Inside, my head was rattling, and my nerves were rattling, and everyone in the room made me rattle, and I loathed some of them, and all for no reason other than I just couldn't stay still and couldn't listen. I was as far from spirituality as anyone could possibly be. I was a shivering denizen of the mad realm of alcoholism, of alcohol. And I didn't even understand. Well, you never do. I came to AA in 1960. I was only a kid. I was only 19. But I had a history then. I had a history as a kid anyway. But I mean, you can't go into everything. But the point is, unlike some alcoholics, I mean, I think I had a personality problem, and I was probably more on the autistic scale. And any other scale you want to put me on. I had this like St. Francis dance where you couldn't keep still. I think it's called, I can't remember, the Chorea, I think it's called. But anyway, my entire family could keep still. In fact, they used to wait. One of them read, well, we had two papers in the house, which is the Times and the Manchester Guardian at the time. I couldn't read the Beano. I couldn't keep still. To read anything, my head was always racing. I was always thinking about me. I didn't know that. But when I sat with my brothers and sisters, the siblings, they were remarkably placid. And it was just weird to me. And they used to sit and wait with each other to read one of the papers. One might sit upstairs, the other one somewhere else. And they would patiently wait till they read every page of it, you know. I thought that was weird in itself. There was no rush reading. I had to rush in about 5 minutes to give it. But I just, as I say, I couldn't have settled to read it. And it was a penance listening to it. And then my sister would come down and she'd sit, and he hadn't finished, say, my brother. And she would just patiently wait. She wouldn't hurry him up. And she wouldn't speak to me while he was reading. So I was highly disciplined and quite spiritual in a way. And everyone was the same. They waited patiently. But sometimes someone might come down and say to me brother Michael something that was important. And he put the paper down and answered them. And I'd been trying about 6 times to get him to talk to me. And he wouldn't answer. And you can imagine my language in my head. And so one day when our Peggy come down and spoke to him, as soon as she spoke to him and went out the room, I walked over and kicked the paper out of his hands. And he said, Mama, John's gone mad again. Just couldn't hold it in. So that's just a small little, idea of what I was like. Far worse than that. My brother might have only been, well, he was only 18 months older than me. And he was only about 12, say. And he'd speak to me like some moral prophet, Why did you do that? Why did you throw that brick at him? Why did you kick that girl? When they used to run after the girls and kick them, they used to do it playfully. The girls used to run in and arse when I kicked them. And needed an ambulance, I just thought that's what you did. No such thing. But anyway, that's the nature of the beast. That's the way I was. And you can imagine introducing alcohol into me. My mother was a pianist. Everyone in the house was musical. They all could play an instrument. I was tone deaf, naturally. You know what I mean? My mother used to go from Dylan to Honky Tonk and somebody else, Winnie Atwell. But she used to have to tune the piano in. I was amazed at this, you know what I mean? I didn't know what. I used to say, what key am I singing in, Mum? She said, the key you're singing in hasn't been invented. And don't sing when we're singing. You're the only one that can put us off out of key. I didn't even know what that meant. I just thought they were picking on me. So, you know, straight away, I wouldn't have fitted in anywhere anyway, except a lunatic asylum. And I ended up there a couple of times. But that was the nature of the beast. So introduce drinking to me, introduce what drink does to alcoholics. Now, every alcoholic in the room is not the same by far. You know, a lot of people in this room are highly educated while they were drinking, smashing jobs. I met them in 1960. They were mostly doctors, you know. One was a solicitor, one was an MP, and I was introduced to that crowd when I first came to my first meeting. But they were absolute marvellous people, even in them days. Very attentive to what I had to say, which was rubbish. And he had top 10 GI, and she was a bit more normal. But, you know, it just didn't ring true. But they knew I was an alcoholic, and treated me with respect, and treated me with great, you know, spirituality, love and attention and kindness and compassion. And nobody judged me, you know, again, because I couldn't even keep still in the meetings, and I was prone to loud outbursts. But they were very good. And I didn't take a lend in them for that neither. Because there was something in me, even at that early age of 19, and my short history of drinking, that I knew there was something wrong with me. Absolutely knew it, but didn't know what it was. And if I'd have gone to 1,000 meetings, it would have made no difference. I had to drink till I was ready. I was nowhere near ready at 19, but I was nearly ready. I was ready enough to go. I left Liverpool shortly after that and went to South Shields. I was on the Tyne Tunnel and played things like that. I was on the ships working on them oil tankers. But I was going to meetings there, and the feelings I used to get in there was marvellous, you know. And this is where I got sober, or spirituality. I got it up with other people. This is Gail's going to share shortly. I was 5 years or 6 years old when she came in, and she was marvellous, you know, a marvellous human being. And of course, she was a Christian, and I was an atheist, just bordering on born again AA member in a spiritual sense. But I used to like to listen to her and what she said, but the other part of me, you know, this dualistic nature that we have, it was always, you know, God's God and all that business, all derogatory. I wasn't really hostile. I was hostile because I knew I couldn't believe this. I was an atheist, and that was the end of it. But I just liked their nature and their compassion and the way they all sang together, and I loved it. But as a natural alcoholic, you know, you don't heal overnight. You're still not well. But I was introduced to wellness, and I was drawn to it. There was something in this room, or these rooms, and this one's no different now at this minute. Because we all have the same feelings, and we all get the same. There's a kindness about us, even beneath all of what my problem was kindness in me. There was terrible unkindness and venom, lots of defects of character, no doubt, but there was still a kindness in me. And I wouldn't go too far. I knew that really I should, when they were singing, like we went to Conway or somewhere, they'd be singing happy clappy songs, I'd cross over the road. Simply because I couldn't take it. I loved what they were doing, but I didn't want to be associated with them. That's how much of a giver I was, you know. Fuck damn. Until I got to realise that really to have a friend is to act friendly, and to be with them, and to stand up for them. Another lad who used to be in the same group, Jimmy, used to say the rosary on the bus, and I thought that's going a bit too far there. So I'd go over and sit over there, and I would always do it. And I wish it's fish and finish this fucking rosary, you know. This is all I was saying in my mind. But I still needed him. There was a neediness about him. There's something about him that I loved, like I loved her. I wanted healings to be like them, but the other part of me didn't. You know, it was reneging. So there's, you know, other people might identify with that. Not everyone gives themselves completely to this program straight away. And even though I didn't drink, and even though I was drinking more sober than she was, you know, I was 6 years ahead of her, or whatever it was. I didn't have the well, you know, the calmness of spirit that she had, and the relief that she got out of that, and the loss of self, and she would just sing like that. I mean, I used to go to church with them eventually and try to be like them and shout amen at the end. Big loud voice. And think, well, I've done my job. And it was the same with Jimmy, you know. Eventually somebody said to me, is he a friend of yours? Well, why don't you act like a friend? A friend would stand up for his mate. He wouldn't walk away from him while he's saying the rosary. Somebody else must have told me that, because I wouldn't have come to that conclusion myself. So in the end, I started sitting with Jimmy. Now, that did me good. It was a tremendous torment to me. I'm still doing it. I didn't want to do it. But I did it. So I changed in spite of myself. I did things that I didn't want to do. Because why? Because I respected people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't judge on how long they were sober. There was something about them and the way they had a loving, kind response to AA that I wanted. And I became sold on these ideas in this big book, as they say, you know, as expressed through them, not through the pages. Because again, I was down to 3 words, and then we had to crack up. You know, learning to read for me was terrible. I mean, I'd passed the scholarship, and I'd passed all me. I mean, I got thrown out of grammar school at 50, drinking in the. Lots of other things. I broke the teacher's nose, and all sorts of stupid things, you know. And anyway, they wouldn't have me in the school. But he certainly wouldn't. He said he'd done it deliberately. It was a medicine ball. I mean, I drop kicked, and I had to drop kick a medicine ball. It's a work of art. You can't normally do it. And for somebody to be walking around and be hitting the nose with it, you know, it was a pure accident. But he said he'd done it deliberately, and he held to that. So I was out, but I went back and got me O level. So even in the thickness of my brain, not being able to read, and yet I passed physics, and it was unbelievable. I passed physics. It was unbelievable. I wasn't the slightest bit interested in it. Technical drawing I could understand. English I could understand. Maths even I could understand. But the other one, I thought, this is a con. You know, but they gave me, I thought, to get rid of me in case I wanted to come back another year. And the gamesman's hating me because when we went on a cross-country run, I'd run home. And that was the end of it, you know. Or I went run somewhere to town, anyway, but on the run with him. But, I mean, I wasn't the only fiend on there. I was drinking in the entry with other people who had more money than me and were giving me the booze. So naturally I was there. And I wanted to stay there. But anyway, that's part of my story. The biggest part of my story is not me or what I did or what I was like, although we have to share this, what we were like and what we're like now. And what we were like then. And I found it very difficult to love my fellow man, even in Alcoholics Anonymous, the nicest, most loving people on earth, who were genuine. When I got down to that Geordie land, they accepted me with open arms, you know, in all the AA meetings there. And even in the mental hospitals. I ended up in Cherry Knowles, in Sunderland, and I went through getting electrocuted for $6 weeks, and forced to drink while I was being electrocuted. I won't go into that. It was barbaric, really. And I was enough for doing it. But there, you know, I just wanted to prove that I really did want to stop drinking. And the first day it ended, I went out and got drunk, like every decent alcoholic. I'd done it in Moston Hospital, I'd done it everywhere. But something made me stick with Alcoholics Anonymous, and something made other alcoholics stick with me, which is the most important component of my recovery. The alcoholics had the patience and the love for me as well as themselves. They understood that. And I just can't talk like this without people understanding this, because they know I'm not talking to an empty head in these rooms. Sometimes maybe people have just come in, but they all know the patience, love and tolerance and compassion that people in these rooms give you. And you can't buy it. You've just got to sit there and be a pest, or not a pest, and try and soak it up. And I had the sense to do that. And before I knew where I was 6 years sober. And she entered the scene. And other people. I'm just mentioning her because she's next. Well, more than that, like. But it's inexplicable that the people who helped me were the people that I detested most. And the detestation was nothing to do. It was an emotional response that only could come from me. It had nothing to do with the people. It had something to do with me wonky head. And the inability to even trust people. I distrusted their motives and I distrusted the program. And it took me quite a while, just even, a day at a time. I'd say about 10 years before I got normalised, before I become socialised. I went off to university. Because as I say, I did have a brain. I'm not making myself out to having a magnificent brain. I didn't, but I had a brain that was hard working and learned on its own without me, thank God. And I learned about social ethics. I studied sociology, studied ethics, studied spirituality, theology, philosophy, and did a degree. Then I went to do a postgrad, and then I went on to do a master's. That's not really the important thing. The important thing was the way I was able to do that. And not want to put the professor, although I did. I didn't put him, but Amanda felt like. Because she didn't give me the mark I thought I deserved. But I grew up. And I'm trying to be truthful here. I grew up over a long period of time. And I learned a lot. And some of the greatest things that helped me was literature. I love reading Shakespeare. I found every word that was alcoholic dripped off the end of his pen. Tolstoy was another one. Tolstoy, I read his life, and his own life, and he couldn't sit in the room with a rope in case he hung himself. And sharp blades had to be thrown outside. So I knew all about the suicidal and hateful, the way you hate yourself. All of that. And I found me in these people, in literature. Not because I was any great scholar. I couldn't read the Beano. And here I am reading all this. The thing that my wife died 1 year into sobriety, she was sober. And I had the 4 kids. And I knew that I had a big job on my hands. And it wasn't just my sobriety, it was my kids. And something innate in me and love for your kids was there. There's also irritation, but the love was there for them. And, I had to make the grade. But I remembered reading Dante Alighieri, the Italian, he wrote the Paradiso and the Inferno and the Purgatorio. Now, I obviously didn't read in Latin, but I read it in a translation. But the translation is my wife died, and there she was, and she was a spiritual emblem to me. Honest to God, the most spiritual person you've ever met. Died at 25. And you can imagine the guilt I felt with having to live with me in and out of hospitals. The pestilence, if ever there was one. My dad used to call me an infidel, any name allowed, a vagabond. I got the worst possible names you could ever imagine. And there I am sitting with a little saint of a girl. He absolutely loved her. The old scene here is my spiritual. And in this Dante's Inferno, strange the way Kung was thinking, Beatrice was the one that led him through hell in the sense that he understood what was happening in his life. The purgatory is a place where you go to heal, and then you get to paradise. And she was always on paradise, so he had to have a philosopher to help him through them places. But Beatrice was a person in his life that he fell in love with, never in a sexual way because she was married. But there was something beautiful and kind that I found in AA with people. I'm not talking about just women. There's a beauty and a kindness that you're drawn to. Spiritual thing. And it was in me. Thank God that it was in me. I'm saying thank God even I'm an atheist. It's just a Catholic expression. But it was in me then. So I wasn't all bad. And that's what saved me. People in Alcoholics Anonymous found that in me, and I responded to it. And I can honestly say, that I wouldn't have got sober with Alcoholics Anonymous. No doubt about it. And I can't feel, I can't, there's no, the humility in me is not mine. It's just a fact that I'd have never made it on my own. So to be, no matter how many years I'm sober, is a direct result of being with people in Alcoholics Anonymous. They're the most loving and kindest people on earth. And if you find in yourself to try and copy them, from the day one that I got sober, I had to do it for my kids and my wife. I started behaving not like me, but like the program suggested. And that's what my reading was all about. It was in search of the right thing to do, validating AA in the other pages of the great writers, because I got validation of what they all said, and that's what captured me. The realization that this was worldwide. Shakespeare had it in Will the Quill was my favourite. It was there in doses, large doses, and everyone read in great literature. And so you can't, your humility is there because you know you'd have never made it without following some spiritual program. That's why I wanted to read the varieties of religious experience. The actual paragraph of spiritual experience in the book is the sixth soul. The paragraph before he writes about spiritual experience, and I was the sixth soul, and I found myself in the sixth soul, and found myself in the spiritual experience, even as an atheist. I always say this for atheists in the room, not because I'm propounding it or looking for acolytes. I'm looking for tormented spirits who will find any way to follow this program because it's life-saving. I'll finish on that, thanks.
Thanks, John. And on reflection of my story and what happened to me, I came to this fellowship in 1974. I was 29 and a half, I would say 29 and a half. I started drinking when I was 28. I lost my father. And the illness within me, was in me. And the first time I ever felt I belonged somewhere was when I came into the fellowship. I felt I belonged. But the great thing, as John says, it's a journey. I mean, that's a lifetime, 54 years. It's a lifetime for me. And during the journey, as we all know, you've got a lot to go through. You think, well, I've stopped drinking now. Everything in the garden will be rosy, But you see, the reality of life hits you. you get that period of time, you know, where you feel, oh, isn't it great to be sober? And then the reality of acceptance. I'm an alcoholic. Coming to believe that there's somebody bigger than me, because it was all about me. And, you know, doing the third step as well. So for me, it's about the programme, living the programme every day. But I had to learn, that's the thing. I had to learn how to live again. And I don't think, on reflection of it, that I ever truly, although I'd been brought up to believe, I was brought up to believe, but I didn't believe. And I recognised it was all false until I come to the fellowship. And as John says, which is true, you find it in others, that sense of belonging. First place I ever felt understood was at an AA meeting. You know, and John spoke about the love and compassion that we have for each other. Well, it's priceless. You just don't buy it. You can't buy it. And as myself, I've been through a lot of different good times, been to all the conventions, difficult times. But the most important thing is I haven't picked a drink up. And when I come in to the fellowship, I remember the message so well. Don't drink alcohol and you get well. No matter what is going on, do not drink alcohol. And for me, no matter what's been going on in my life, because I understand and accept I am an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. If I took one drink, it'd be all over. You know, and I'm here with the help of God to pass the message of alcoholism and how it lives within us every day if we don't practice the AA programme. For me, it's a way of life. I don't know any other way to live anymore. And like everybody else, I've been through a lot lately. For the first time, I got to Nodfa at the weekend. It was a retreat. And believe you me, I never ever thought I'd get back to Wales. Never. I never thought I'd be able to come back to the meeting like I am today. Because a lot has happened, you know. I took very ill after my grandson died, and I had to have my leg amputated. And it was during COVID. So major decisions had to be made on my own. There was no visitors, couldn't get a signal in the hospital. You had to watch people dying with COVID. Things like that. So the trauma of all that was quite horrendous, really. Yeah. But the miracle is that God was with me. That was a miracle. My spirit, how I learned to live in this fellowship. The people in the fellowship, they come back to you, you know, you remember faces and you remember people, you know. And I thank God. Without God in my life, losing my grandson at 19 years of age, but he took his own life, was horrendous for me, horrendous, because he was bullied, blackmailed, and he hung himself. Horrendous. I've never known pain like it. And the pain remains. But you see, that's the truth. I can only live in reality, in the truth of my life. I can't live nobody else's life. I can only live my life. And the great thing about the fellowship, people have taught me how to be honest and truthful and transparent. I mean, I've got nothing to hide. When I came into the fellowship, I used to hide everything. I'll tell you this, but I won't tell you that. You know, I'll let you in a little bit, but I'll push you out a little bit. But to be able to be free, a free person, you can't buy it, can you?
No.
Free to look people in the eye and say, how are you? Because it's about you, it's not about me. It's about how you're coping. He's taught me to sit and listen and be with people, you know, and share the truth about who I am. It led me to find who I am. I didn't know who I was when I came into this fellowship. I didn't know who I was. So what a great, you know, a wonderful gift to be given. The gift of faith, to believe in another human being that I can do a fourth and fifth step with. I'm not afraid to say, this is what's happened. To take responsibility for my life and to make amends to my children the best way I can. And you might get rejected, and many times I did get rejected. But I didn't have to drink alcohol. That's not the answer. Alcohol is not the answer for an alcoholic. But the great gift that I had was I had people. I had AA members, I had a sponsor, I had friends, I had people who could sit with that loved me. I had people that told me the truth, sat with me and told me the truth. And that's how I got well. There's nothing sugar-coated or, this is the way it is, this is the way it is, this is what you need to do. You know, and get rid of selfishness, because it's number one, you know, thing for an alcoholic, plus resentment, plus judging people. Just mind your own business, I got told. It's nothing to do with you. God grant me serenity to mind my own business, keep my nose out of people's. That is their stuff. That is their difficulties. The most important thing of all of that is they're staying sober. That's the most important thing. I was staying sober. But you see, you learn about the spirit and the spirituality of who you are. Now, if you start delving into, you've got to detach from the worldly thinking. Can you imagine how long that takes to detach from worldly thinking? And discipline myself. I had to discipline myself to be a spiritual human being. We're all spiritual human beings. That's what I believe. In the Spirit of God, of what God, it's not important. It's your God or your higher power. And that's my prayer, that when people come into the fellowship, they find through others like us, Carol, Julie, this young lad, all of us, we're all here for each other. I'm not here to judge anybody. You know, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I've stayed sober, no matter what's happened in my life. And the wonderful people that I had around me at the weekend. You know, we make mistakes. We say the wrong things. We do the wrong things. But at least we can say, I'm sorry. You know, we make choices. I did. The wrong choices. But I can take responsibility for the wrong choices I made. And, you know, look at it for what it is. Because that's what's, for me, that's what growing up's about. It's about giving, living, loving, and hurting, and pain. That's life. That is my life. You know, and I accept life on life's terms. But I'm so grateful to be here. And my message is, please find a higher power. Because no matter how long you're sober, one day you're going to need something to turn to. When you go through things, at the blink of an eye, your life can change forever. Just like that, my grandson took his own life. You know, I don't want pity about that. I'm just saying, just the blink of an eye. We went away at the weekend, it was just like the blink of an eye. We were coming home, we got there, and all of a sudden it's Sunday. So all the joy and happiness, and you're going back to reality. But you see, that's experience, isn't it? We've all got fantastic experiences to share with each other. They might be hurtful and painful, but we need to hear them. I need to hear them. You know, so anyway, I'm not going to go on, but I'm grateful to God and to everybody here. You know, I can look everybody straight in the eye and say, thank you. I love you all. And that's a God's honest truth from my heart, straight from my heart, because that's where the Holy Spirit lives, in your heart. And it's the Holy Spirit that does the changing. You know, if you work through the programme, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, having had a spiritual awakening, something changes in all of us. And family notice it, don't they? Yeah. People notice it. So thank you very much.
Nice. Thanks, love.